There's a question the boys has been quietly building toward for years. And episode 3 finally forces us to ask it out loud. Why does Soldier Boy have V1, but Homelander doesn't? Because if you really think about it, that shouldn't make sense. Homelander is supposed to be the perfect version of a soup, the final product, the upgrade. So why is it that when the anti-supe virus hits, Soldier Boy survives and Homelander is still at risk? At first, it feels like a twist, but the deeper you go, the more it starts to look like a mistake Vought has been hiding since the beginning. Let's go back. Way before Homelander, before the Seven, before Vought became a global machine, there was V1. Not Compound Vi as we know it, but the first version. Unstable, raw, unpredictable. This wasn't something designed to create celebrities. It wasn't about branding or control. It was about one thing: power. Pure, unchecked power. And Soldier Boy? He wasn't just injected with V1. He was built on it. That's the key difference most people are missing. Soldier Boy didn't receive V1 as a refined dose. He was part of an era where Vought didn't fully understand what they were creating. They weren't perfecting the formula, they were testing its limits. And that means Soldier Boy's body didn't just accept V1, it adapted to it. Over time, his entire biology became something else, something stronger, something more stable than Vought ever expected. Now, compare that to Homelander. Homelander wasn't an experiment in the same way, he was a product. By the time Homelander was created, Vought had learned from their mistakes. They had seen what V1 could do, the instability, the unpredictability, the lack of control. So they made a decision, not to make something stronger, but to make something controllable. And that's where everything changes. Because Homelander isn't built on V1, he's built on a refined version of Compound Vi, a version designed to be safer, more stable, more predictable, but in making him more controlled, they made him less absolute. And that's the irony. The most powerful soup in the world is not built on the strongest version of the formula. Because Vought wasn't trying to create a god. They were trying to create a weapon they could manage. But Soldier Boy, he's what happens when you create power without understanding it. And that's why the virus doesn't work on him, because the virus was designed to target modern Compound Vi, the refined version, the controlled version. But V1, it's different. It's older, more complex, more deeply integrated into the body. The virus doesn't recognize it the same way. It can't break it down. So when Soldier Boy gets hit, his body doesn't collapse. It rejects the attack. And that's the moment everything shifts. Because now, for the first time, Homelander isn't the most powerful being in the room anymore. And deep down, he knows it. That's why his reaction to V1 is so intense. It's not just curiosity, it's fear. Because V1 represents something Homelander has never had, a ceiling beyond himself. For his entire life, Homelander has believed he's the peak, the final evolution, the end of the line. But V1 proves something terrifying. He's not the final product. He's just a refined version of something older and possibly weaker. And that realization, that's what pushes him further into his God complex. Because if he's not naturally the strongest, then he has to become something greater. That's where the obsession with immortality comes from. That's where the prophecy begins. Homelander isn't just chasing power anymore. He's chasing perfection. And V1, that's the missing piece. But here's where the twist gets even darker, because if Soldier Boy survived V1 and became this powerful, then what happens if Homelander gets it? At first, it sounds like the ultimate upgrade, but it might actually destroy him. Because Homelander's body wasn't built for V1. It was built for a controlled system, a balanced formula. Introducing something as raw and unstable as V1 into his system could create something completely unpredictable. It might amplify him or it might break him. And that's the risk no one is talking about. Because V1 doesn't just enhance power, it rewrites it. And Homelander, he's already unstable. So imagine what happens when you take someone with a God complex and remove the last limitations holding him together. You don't get a hero. You don't even get a villain. You get something else entirely. Now let's bring Ryan into this, because this is where the theory becomes truly terrifying. Ryan isn't like Soldier Boy, and he's not like Homelander. He's something new. He wasn't injected with V, he was born with it. And that means his body might not have the same limitations. So what happens if Ryan is exposed to V1? He might not reject it. He might not be overwhelmed by it. He might merge with it perfectly. And if that happens, then Ryan doesn't just become stronger than Homelander. He becomes something neither Soldier Boy nor Homelander ever could be, a natural evolution of V, which means the real reason Soldier Boy has V1 and Homelander doesn't might not be a mistake. It might be set up, because Vought didn't just create heroes, they created generations. Soldier Boy was the beginning, Homelander was the refinement, and Ryan. And if that's true, then the real twist isn't about who has V1, it's about who doesn't need it. Because in the end, power in the boys doesn't stay in one place, it evolves. And right now, it's evolving into Ryan. Ending Hook. So the real question isn't just why Soldier Boy has V1 or why Homelander doesn't. It's this. If V1 created the past and Compound V created the present, then what exactly is Ryan about to become? And when that answer finally comes, it might not just end Homelander. It might end everything. So when you step back and look at everything, Soldier Boy having V1, Homelander being built on a refined version of Compound Vi, and Ryan slowly becoming neither of them can fully control, it stops feeling like random plot twists and starts feeling like a pattern, a system, a design that goes all the way back to Vought's earliest experiments. Because Soldier Boy isn't just a survivor of V1, he's proof of what happens when power is created without limits. Unstable, brutal, but real. Homelander, on the other hand, is what happens when that same power is filtered, controlled, and polished, turned into something that looks perfect on the surface, but is still emotionally broken underneath. And Ryan? Ryan is the unknown factor, the one nobody fully understands yet, because he isn't just inheriting power, he's growing into it, naturally. And that's what makes everything so dangerous now, because if Soldier Boy represents the past and Homelander represents the present, then Ryan might be standing right at the edge of something new, something the world of the boys has never dealt with before. So the real shock isn't just that V1 exists, or that Homelander doesn't have it, or even that Soldier Boy survived it. The real shock is this. Power in this universe was never meant to stay stable. It was always meant to evolve. And as we move deeper into this final season, one question becomes impossible to ignore. When evolution finally finishes its work, who's left standing? Because it might not be a hero, it might not be a villain, it might be something far worse, something that was never meant to exist in the first place. And that's where the boys is heading now, straight into its final transformation.